moving, you're going to need resilience and anti-fragility. You're going to need to keep moving and keep striving through the failures or through the setbacks and through the direction that you thought you were supposed to be going, only to realize you're supposed to be going northwest, not just north. But the good thing about this, as I said, is your life is like a stock portfolio. If you just keep moving forward, you always come to a better place. If you just keep moving forward, you just go through the peaks and the troughs, then what you learn, the skills, the resources that you have, the relationships that you have, always compound as long as they're serving you. And so everything always compounds and brings you more and more dividends, always brings you more and more growth.
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
As a team, we fight for that inch. On this team, we tear ourselves and everyone else around us to pieces for that inch. We claw with our fingernails for that inch.
This is where we hold them. This is where we fight. This is where they die. And these shield dies.
Hello, beautiful people. This is episode 8 of the Matt's Mindset podcast, the pod that helps you to stand on the shoulders of giants so you can achieve your dreams. So last week we discussed how to create real and lasting change in your life, and I hope it was incredibly helpful for you. And in this episode, where it's kind of, while it is a effective standalone, it can also be seen as a effective complement to last week's episode, building on the lessons. Because today we're going to discuss one of the key ingredients for success, which is resilience. Resilience can be defined as the capacity to withstand or recover quickly from difficulties. Toughness, in other words. The ability of a substance or object to spring back into shape, elasticity. But real resilience really goes beyond those things. While those are maybe the dictionary definition, real resilience, as you'll need it in your life, goes just beyond those things. Resilience is not just about being tough, just about withstanding. It's not just about being elastic. It's about even more than those things. It is those things, but it transcends those things as well. To be truly resilient, you have to be, in the words of Nassim Nicholas Taleb, anti-fragile. Taleb, whose theory of the Procrustean bed that I discussed at length in one of my previous episodes, put forward this idea of anti-fragility, because there are things that are fragile, which maybe when they're stress tested, they break down, where it could be something in the physical world, like glass or something is fragile. It could be something like a website where when you stress test it, it doesn't hold up to a whole bunch of traffic, so that's something that's fragile. Then there's something that's tough, where it can withstand intense heat or withstand a lot of abuse or whatever the case may be, but it then is dented or then it's damaged, but at least it withheld, at least it withstood whatever was thrown at it. But anti-fragility goes beyond just robustness, beyond toughness, beyond elasticity. It means that something does not merely withstand a shock, but actually improves because of it. That is resilience. That is anti-fragility. So this, as I said, this episode is a bit of a standalone, but I think you get a lot of good by using it as a complement to the create lasting change. So this can be like the next step after you've identified what you're going after, because resilience is going to be an essential ingredient upon reaching your potential, self-actualization, and achieving your dreams. To kick off our discussion, we're going to start with a quote, as I like to do. I like to enjoy those quotes. It's more of a story, I suppose. It's a bit of an anecdote from David Goggins, as you'll hear, but he's a Navy SEAL, he's an author, and a motivational speaker. Unfulfilled potential is the story of most people's lives. It is, and it could have been the story of mine. I tell a lot of people, what's your biggest fear in life? And my biggest fear, David Goggins, honestly was, let's say I don't care if you believe in God or not. Like, I don't care. Let's just play a game. Let's say that you're God and we have a big fucking line of people and I just made it to heaven. 75 years old, 300 pounds, I made it to heaven. I worked for Ecolab my entire life, spraying for cockroaches, that's what I did. But I'm dead now, I'm in heaven now, and you're judging me now. So we're in line, we're all sitting there in line, and you have Adam Brown's in front of me, and this is big board up, and you're talking to Adam Brown about his life. And then you rip it down, and I'm next in line, David Goggins. I see my name, I see all this shit. And God goes, hey, you, read this, man. And now I'm reading this list, and I'm seeing 182 pounds, Navy SEAL, Ranger School, motivational speaker, changing lives. And I'm like, hey, like that's not me, man. And God looks at me and says, that's who you're supposed to be. It's a pretty powerful thought experiment. Like, who would you be if you applied yourself? Who is your highest self? Who is your self-actualization? Well, there's only one person who knows that, and they're listening to this podcast right now. And I think this is a quintessential human experience to want to maximize your potential, to want to know who you are, to want to live up to who you're supposed to be. Kind of an overarching goal of our lives is to be all that we can be. It's our reason for being. And your reason for being, you are uniquely gifted in where you're supposed to be right now, and the world more than ever needs your unique gifts and talents. 80 to 300 million other people could have been born, but you were born. So regardless of what you believe, you have an opportunity of a lifetime, literally. Like, you have unique gifts, talents, you're literally coded to be a specific way. And you then, when you moved into life, you encountered challenges or encountered certain experiences. And so you've literally been shaped by your experiences and shaped by your coding to be who you are today. And the world needs who you are today. And just like in the parable of the talents in the New Testament, parable of the talents is a story told by Jesus of Nazareth, which illustrates the importance of being a good steward of the gifts and abilities that God has given us. In the parable, a master gives 3 of his servants different amounts of talents, a form of currency. But it's interesting that it's a form of currency, but it's also literally talents, before the master goes on a journey. And 2 of the servants invest their talents and double their amounts. And the third buries his talents and does not make any profit. And when the master returns from his journey, he rewards the first 2 servants, but punishes the third for not using his talents wisely. The parable teaches that we should use our gifts and abilities to serve God and others, rather than hoarding them for ourselves. So we all want to be the best that we can be in this life, and that's also one of the hardest things to do, because there are literally people, things, and entities trying to get us to not be the best that we can be. And what I mean by that is I don't mean that in like some esoteric way. I mean that there are literally corporations and individuals who have decided to make money and make a living by exploiting your time and your attention and resources in a way that's not in your highest good or the highest good of others. You have to know and cultivate an awareness of these corporations and individuals and steer clear of them. We talked a little bit about this last week in the aspirational hourly wage section of the podcast. Like, that's like kind of the number one thing that you have to cultivate it as an awareness of what's serving you and what's not. And then also get out of your own way, as we discussed last week, where you have to get your mindset in the right place. And of course, you have to know where you're going, which talked a lot about this last week. These are kind of the 3 modules that I talked about last week, and the 3 modules in the PDF that you can check out in the link in my bio. But this because it takes a lot of introspection, a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-awareness in an age of cheap dopamine, increasingly cheap dopamine given to you in a whole manner of different ways, and the attention economy that we find ourselves in. And the attention economy is there's a lot of quote unquote free things right now in the world. Like social media is quote unquote free. YouTube is free. Pornography is free. There's a whole bunch of things that you can access without, having to pay money. But the thing about those things is a lot of them are double-edged swords. Like YouTube, you can use for education, or you could use for watching cat videos. And I like cat videos as much as the next person. But if a product is free, then that's not actually what they're selling. That's not how they're making money. If a product is free, that means that you're the product. You're how they are making money. You are, whether you can either use that tool for your own betterment, or you can be exploited by that tool. That's the attention economy that we find ourselves in. And of course, once you know what you want to do and you got your mindset right, then there's the actual matter of doing it, the actual matter of putting your 10,000 hours in. As Malcolm Gladwell would say, it takes about 10,000 hours to achieve mastery. Although I know Naval Ravikant says it's not necessarily 10,000 hours, but 10,000 iterations. Like, it's not enough necessarily to be just putting in the time. You have to really be consciously doing the deep work and iterating and improving each time. So it might be less than 10,000 hours. It could be more. It just kind of depends on the iterations and you really doing the work to improve. So then that's the actual matter of moving in the direction. So once you've identified what you want, moving in that direction. So it could be, could be a specific field of study, could be a profession, a vocation, could be maybe you just like want to get married, have a family, be a nurturer, just cook amazing meals. Maybe you do want to be a chef professionally. Maybe you would just like to be a homemaker. These are all incredibly important things in our society that we need. Whoever you are, like I said, whoever you're coded to do, whatever your personal life experiences is, we need people to lean into who they are and to show up as themselves and to be the best version of themselves. And then you have to do it. There's going to be a learning curve. There's going to be a period of study, informal or informal, that you have to take. And this is where like the resilience comes in, because I think a lot of people may come across a subject, may come across something that they want to do, and then they think that that's kind of the end. They just have to walk that path to the end. But you may come to find out or realize, as I did, and maybe you won't, maybe you will just have a destiny. Maybe you will just stumble upon exactly what you're supposed to do. But I think odds are you'll come to find out, as I did, that what you're actually working towards is not actually your potential, but simply just another pit stop along the way. Almost like a hiking trail that you had to take to get to where you're going. Like when this resort that I went to with my family when I was younger, where I learned to snowboard, you go up on one lift. So you're at the base of the mountain, you go up on a chairlift, and then you have to ski down the mountain a little bit. You have to take these two trails that connect you to another chairlift that you can only access that chairlift through this specific trail. And then that takes you to the top of the mountain. So sometimes you have to do that in life. Sometimes you have to go up one lift that isn't taking you, or you think it's going where you want to go. So you think you're going where you want to go. You're taking this chairlift. But then when you get there, you realize that you're not where you want to be. You're halfway up the mountain. And so you have to take a traverse. You have to go along this other path to get to another chairlift, which will then take you to the peak. And so that's kind of what you may find out as you go 8,000 miles north. You put in 8,000 hours, 8,000 iterations into something, only to discover that you're supposed to be going northwest, not just north. And so you have to change your course slightly. And this is where resilience and anti-fragility will come in, because resilience and anti-fragility are the two least talked about, least glamorous, most important skills you'll ever develop in your life. Something I think sports are very good at instilling is resilience and persistence and just moving forward even when, through competition, through obstacles. It's the G-force that'll keep you moving. As talking about sports, as Vince Lombardi said, there's what separates the champion from everybody else is not a surplus of strength and not a surplus of knowledge, but a surplus of will. Resilience and anti-fragility are the secret ingredient, the secret sauce. It's the Krabby Patty secret formula of evolution. It's not the smartest that survive, nor the strongest, but the ones most adaptable to change. That's Charles Darwin from Origin of Species. So literally the special, like I said, the special ingredient of evolution. It's resilience is how you pick yourself back up after you fail, or you discover that the direction that you're going in is no longer the direction you want to go anymore. And that can be almost sometimes more painful than failures. When you're not failing, you're determined not to fail, but you realize you're actually not heading in the correct direction anymore. It's like your journey to self-actualization, to potential, to being who you are is odds are will look like a stock portfolio. When you're actualizing your own potential, you're going to go up and you're going to go down, and then you're going to go up a little bit more, you're going to go down. And the good thing about that is that you go up and then you go down, and you go up further and you go down. You go up even further and then you go down. And so you're just going to keep compounding your skills and your experiences over time, and you're going to reap incredible rewards, but you're going to have to go through the peaks and the troughs. And like most people, myself included, I don't necessarily enjoy this process. But your alternative is employing a bit of Keynesian economics to your life, in that you just end up not progressing. You can choose, this is all just guidance. You can choose to just not progress. You can choose to just not grow. You can stay at the same job for 30 years, like in that David Goggins example. You can spray for cockroaches for 30 years. You can not iterate. You can not strive. You can not actualize. You can stay in an unhappy marriage or partnership that you no longer have any sort of spark, or perhaps never had any sort of spark with. You can pretend to be in a certain relationship or not put yourself out there. You can, for fear of pain or fear of being betrayed or whatever the case may be, because that situation may not be ideal, but it's comfortable and it's known, and everybody, myself included, really, really likes what's known. Even if something is not ideal, it's known. And that's like kind of it's not really even a phenomenon, but why people are almost like fall back or text or go like spend time with their exes, even though when it's not working out, is because it's comfortable and it's known. Like, what to expect, even though it's not maybe what you want. And that's like something that you really can't, you have to pick one or the other. Like, to move forward, to reach your potential, you're going to have to go through the peaks and the troughs. And like I said, you can artificially curb the natural ebbs and flows of life, the ups and the downs, but you can do that by just making sure you don't have any new experiences. And that, to me, though, is one of my biggest fears in life, is the life unlived, is the life where you aren't learning, growing, iterating, and having new experiences. And so if you're trying to self-actualize, you're going to need resilience, you're going to need anti-fragility to go through these lessons and then pause, internalize the lessons, heal if you need to, and then just keep going. And I think that we need to, as a society, as a culture, as individuals, officially reclaim failure as a positive thing. It's not a negative or a dirty word. It's one of the most important things you can do is fail early, fail often, fail forward. So Tim Ferriss has almost everyone on his show, from famous entrepreneurs to top athletes to professors to high performers in every field, do have a favorite failure. And most of them laugh and they're like, well, which one should I choose? There's so many bad ideas. There were so many things that didn't work. Like, which is my favorite? Which was the most pivotal to my life? I talked a bit about this in my video last week about how failure is where all the lessons are. Failure is where all the growth is. Failure is where you learn exactly who you are and what you need to do. The paradox is that you can't ever really succeed without failure. You can't ever be a champion without losing, because even losers keep going when they're winning. But when you get knocked down flat on your back, then we separate the cream from the crop. Only when you're down 28-3 on the biggest stage in the third quarter, like Tom Brady, and then you come back, can we call you the greatest of all time? At that point, it's not even a question. Like, I remember having a debate with my friend about, obviously I was in the Tom Brady camp, but who was better, like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning? And there used to be an argument for, statistically, maybe Peyton Manning was better. This was years ago, but statistically, maybe Peyton Manning was better. And once you're down 28-3 on the biggest stage in the third quarter and you come back, there's no debate. Like, that's a champion. As Matthew McConaughey would say, you have to get really good at running downhill. You have to get really making hay when the sun shines. When things are good, don't worry about it. Be grateful for your experience, because failure is going to come, because it's not only implicit to the journey, it's necessary. It's not only failure is not simply something that we have to overcome. Failure is a necessary ingredient of the journey. And for me, my journey's been pretty tipsy-turvy. Like when I was in high school, I was basically just conforming, which is nothing wrong with that, especially in high school. Like, high school is kind of conformity on crack, and there's definitely a very, very defined social hierarchy. But it's a good thing, because, as Picasso would say, you have to know the rules so you can break them like an artist. So it's good to have structure and conformity in your life, and then be able to kind of figure out who you are and lean into who you are, and really develop into who you're supposed to be. And in high school, I really had no idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I was taking a criminology class my senior year of high school and found it interesting. So I thought I'd just major in criminal justice and see where that goes. And I found the theory really interesting, but seemed like any path that led to that would really require you to be a police officer at some point. And that wasn't something that I really saw as my path. And so I switched to a history undergrad, because I was fascinated by history. And I was like, all right, I can do this and be on a track for law school, so I can still make some money, but also do what I enjoyed. And if you listen, so all that's kind of in my Lean Into Yourself podcast. You can hear much more in detail about how I fell in love with creative writing, kind of wrote a novel, wrote two more rather abortive novels in undergrad while batching my time and being able to do what I wanted, so do my creative work that I really wanted to do, but also still kind of batch my actual schoolwork to receive my degree requirements. And pretty much by the time junior year rolled around, I was certain that I didn't want to go to law school at that point, and I ended up having a bit of a crisis of meaning. And once again, just go back and listen to I talk about this a little bit more in detail in my Lean Into Yourself podcast, but I decided to pursue screenwriting, and I took a class being offered my senior year and learned the format, and then began to learn structure. I began reading books, began analyzing TV shows, putting in my 10,000 hours. And so I, after about 4 years on this path, so senior year, and then senior year, but mostly senior year, and then 2 years after postgrad, I moved to Los Angeles and spent 2 years there, continuing to write, continuing to make connections, and eventually came to the conclusion that this also was not the route for me. I'd taken I'd driven to the mountain, I had strapped in, I had taken the lift to the, halfway up, And then I realized, okay, like I've arrived, and this is actually not my self-actualization. I talk a lot about this in last week's pod. And so then I also talk about my Lean Into Yourself pod. But so then I came to the conclusion that it was not going to be the route for me. And I came to this, if you're at this kind of crossroads in your life, a good way to figure out what is your actualization, a good way to figure out how to get to your top of your mountain is I remember sitting on my rooftop in LA in beautiful chaise lounges, rooftop pool jacuzzi. It was all my, what I thought was my dream path. And I basically knew there was just no point in continuing, which is a little bit demoralizing. But the exercise that I used to really figure out how to move forward was I just said why over and over. And to figure out what I wanted, I was like, well, what do you want? And so, well, I want to write screenplays. Okay, why? Well, because I want to express myself creatively. Why? Well, because I feel like that's an integral part of my character. Why? Because I feel that's where my potential lies. Okay, great. So there we are. We've reached the ground floor and found one of the pillars of my foundation. Next, why did you want to do screenwriting? Why not continue with novels? What was your crisis of meaning in college? Well, I wanted to make money. Okay, why? Well, because I wanted to spend my time how I want. I want to buy what I need to buy. I want to go where I want to go. I want to feel secure that I can provide for myself and eventually my wife and family. But I also want to do what I love. Okay, so bang, it's not about money at all. Like, you want freedom. Money is just the vehicle you're going to utilize to get to freedom. So it's not even about money. Like, I didn't necessarily want caviar or to stay at the Waldorf Astoria. I wanted freedom. I wanted to own my own time. So freedom is my second pillar that I can build on and optimize to reach my potential. And so once again, these are my pillars. There might be some overlap with you, but you might have completely different pillars in your own life. Once again, why do I feel compelled to share what I know with others, like to write, to self-express? Why don't you just keep it for yourself? Why don't you just try to, be smarter than everyone else? Why don't you just try to quietly self-actualize? Because to answer, I want to share my knowledge. I want to help people. I learned a lot of these lessons the hard way. I like to spare someone just by giving them the knowledge. Like, it's my favorite thing when I listen to creators or athletes or people who are the top of their field, and they freely share their tips, mental models, stories, failures that help them get to where they are, because that helps me. And so just like to pay it forward, it's almost like they're paying for my coffee, and I'd like to pay for the coffee of the person behind me. I'd like to give someone the knowledge that I've received, and if they're willing and able to accept it, like I'm leading the horse to water, and if they're ready and willing to drink, then I would love to be able to share the knowledge and help people. So bang, 100%. Like, there's my third pillar that I can build on. So I left LA, which was difficult because of the sunk cost fallacy. The sunk cost fallacy is the phenomenon whereby a person is reluctant to abandon a strategy or course of action because they've invested heavily in it, even when it is clear that the abandonment would be more beneficial. So that's something that I think I've gotten really good at, not continuing to pursue a certain path, even when I've invested a lot in it, because I've I'm ready to give anything a go, and I've developed that mindset. But I think that it's something that people can struggle with, where especially if they've invested a lot into a certain area, time, money, energy, then it's like, well, I have to keep doing this. I have to keep going. And you have to really cultivate some discernment to know when you're supposed to persist and when you're supposed to pivot. And so I put in about 6 to 8 years in writing, just in novels, screenwriting, had planned and executed a move, and now basically understood I was going to have to leave it all behind. But the key about the sunk cost fallacy is nothing's ever wasted. It's a fundamental force of nature, law of nature, that energy is never created nor destroyed. Whenever I was getting cold all those years ago, whenever I was thinking about cold feet about not leaving for LA, not moving there all those years ago, or I was experiencing doubt, I always framed it this way. Like, I'll either be the person who I need to be to accomplish this goal, or I'll be forced to become the person that I need to be. And that's been true throughout my life. And as I said, nothing is ever wasted. With each experience that you have, you become anti-fragile, because I can't tell you how much I learned about the world and people and myself during that time and during those 2 years. And that's, you can do this any day, every day in your job, wherever you're doing now. But especially if you put yourself in a situation where things are different and it's going to force you to grow, it will, maximize your growth tenfold. And to get even deeper and more concrete with this example, screenwriting gave me boundaries and forced me to learn structure. For example, like with novels, it's a much more broader canvas, but with screenwriting, you have rules, like rules that you can break, but there's a lot more rules. There's a lot that you need to learn. Like, just for example, a feature should be 120 pages, no more. Like a pilot for TV should be no more than 60 pages. It should be structured with 3 acts and a midpoint, or 5 acts with act breaks, respectively. Those are the two structures. And working within these constraints is actually where the best creative solutions and ideas can become available to you. So screenwriting is the art of only writing what is filmable or seeable, and then writing dialogue that's snappy, fun to say, fun to hear, but close enough to what feels like reality. Like, you're not actually writing the way that people talk. You're writing in a fun, elevated, snappy way, but it feels like it's real. And so you have to be funny, poignant, interesting, all while revealing character through action and progressing the wider, broader plot forward to achieve a catharsis with the audience. You want them to feel something. Every scene you're flipping between a negative and a positive charge. There's just a lot going on. It's a tall order, and you have to accomplish that within a certain amount of pages while all hitting certain emotional beats. And it's like the whole, not to just give you a lesson on screenwriting, the whole point is this can be applied to your life in a broader and more general sense. You'll rarely find yourself in a situation where you're entirely unfettered. You'll always have constraints, whether they are simple biological constraints, such as how much energy or time that you have in a certain day, or physical constraints, such as how much money you have, or the amount of people that you have to interact with. So if you're trying to accomplish something of import, if you're trying to achieve your potential, you're going to have to work within these constraints. You're going to have to play within whatever sandbox that you find yourself in. You're going to have to utilize and play with the gifts that you are encoded with, as well as the natural experiences that you've lived in your life. Using your limited time, money, and other resources, you can ask yourself, how can I achieve what I want to achieve? And what you want to achieve could be as simple as, how can I make my kid's day off from school as fun, as enriching as possible? Or it could be solving a massive problem for the betterment of yourself or humanity. Like, at its heart, screenwriting is about problem solving and critical thinking. And at its heart, life is really about problem solving and critical thinking and creativity and finding creative solutions to problems. So to continue my story, my saga, I came home to live with my parents for a couple months after I left Los Angeles. And the first month I kind of spent just kind of recovering. And then I started doing creative things again. I was making videos, little TikToks, bits of advice. It was kind of helping me scratch that creative itch. And then I turned back to my tried and true path of the legal profession, because I kind of was a little bit burnt out. I had resolved to just settle down at that point. And I was like, okay, I had my fun in my young 20s, because I had, and now I'm just going to settle down, go to law school, have, my 1.8 average children engage in conspicuous consumption when I feel empty. Like, I wanted to just be a normal person. And I really tried to do that. I really tried to just be a normal person. And I studied harder for the LSAT than I've ever studied for anything in my life. And I got a good score and I was happy I did it. But staring down the barrel of my future, I just knew it wasn't the direction that I was supposed to be heading. I'd reached the top of the ski lift and I knew I wasn't where I wanted to be. I had to take another. I had to choose, did I want to just go into the lodge and call it quits, or did I want to ski down, the downspout, the traverse, to the other chairlift to actually go to the top of the mountain to see the beautiful sweeping sights at the top of the mountain. It also wasn't going to support my 3 pillars of freedom, creative expression, or helping people the best way that I could. It was going to be playing the status game, and I talk more about the status game and the wealth game in my Lean Into Yourself podcast. And so I'm at this point, I'm still working. I have my legal job. I knew it wasn't supporting my pillars, so I had to figure out what I was going to do, and I ended up pivoting to expanding my TikTok advice channel that I had been running to everything, to a blog, to a website, to an Instagram, to a Twitter, and the podcast that you hear today. And so I have no doubt that now my path will continue to morph and change as I move forward and continue to learn and grow as a human being, because you learn and grow, you literally become a new person every day. Like if you're attempting to learn and grow, you're going to become a new person every day. You're going to encounter new information, and you have to integrate that. And if you can think back to the person that you were a year ago, odds are you're pretty different. Your life looks pretty different. And if you made an active choice to grow and change, you're going to be vastly different than you were a year ago. And in the same way, your cells in your body are not even the same cells that existed 3 months ago. Your cells recycle every 3 months or so. Not all of them, obviously, but your body absorbs cells as your cells have a certain life cycle. You're not who you were a year ago. Like literally your cells are not the same cells. Your body absorbs them and creates new ones. So who you are is in a constant state of flux. And so in order to deal with these changes, in order to adapt, in order to not fall into the sunk cost fallacy, in order to put in your 10,000 iterations in one thing and then only to realize that it's only half of what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to need resilience and anti-fragility. You're going to need to keep moving and keep striving through the failures or through the setbacks and through the direction that you thought you were supposed to be going, only to realize you're supposed to be going northwest, not just north. But the good thing about this, as I said, is your life is like a stock portfolio. If you just keep moving forward, you always come to a better place. If you just keep moving forward, you just go through the peaks and the troughs, then what you learn, the skills, the resources that you have, the relationships that you have, always compound as long as they're serving you. And so everything always compounds and brings you more and more dividends, always brings you more and more growth. So on that note, go out and do whatever you feel called to do today to actualize your potential, because whoever you are, we need you more than ever. Our society needs you, your authentic self, more than ever. We don't need more people to fit in. We need more people to stand out, stand in their truth, and be who they are. Light and love, my friends. Go in peace, to love and serve.
Say ghost town, haunted love. Raise your voice.